Hey there, so I'm Megan and I own Hipstitch Academy, and Hipstitch Academy is a sewing studio, sewing school, and I teach classes online and I teach classes in a physical location. Located in the Catskills of New York State. And we also host retreats here on my property. I have turned my garage into a sewing studio, and we have great retreats in the spring and summer. I'm currently putting that schedule together. I've been a sewing teacher for a really long time, and these live streams are meant to get beginners a little bit more accustomed to sewing and following instructions and reading a pattern. This is a very beginner level project, and I'm going to be doing it in a very beginner level way. If you don't know, we are making the Robe jacket from Peppermint magazine, and Peppermint magazine is this wonderful publication. I think it's out of Australia. I really need to get to the bottom of that, but I'm pretty sure it's Australia, and they produce a publication each month, and they have a free sewing pattern that you can download from indie sewing pattern creators who are amazing. So if you haven't checked that out already, definitely check that out. Tonight's project is this robe jacket. I have already cut my pattern pieces out, I've printed my pattern, I've taped them together, and I've cut it. But I have not cut the fabric yet, so I wanted to take the time to do that for this live stream. Maybe you've already cut yours. Maybe you're watching the recording, you've already cut yours. You can watch me do it, or you could skip ahead. And I just want to say too, because this is a beginner class or beginner demonstration, I'm going to skip some of the things that maybe very seasoned sewers would do. I'm not going to serge my edges. I am not going to iron every seam. I honestly don't even have my iron set up tonight. So if you're a beginner, I always tell people, don't worry about all of that. Make this fun. And if you're just starting out, just do what you can. Don't get super intimidated by all of the steps and all of the things that make sewing a little bit more difficult. If you're out there and you can't hear me for some reason, let me know, of course. I never really know if you can hear me, but it's because I have to mute my little system so I don't hear myself repeated back. All right, let's get started. I've got my overhead camera, and of course it is nighttime here, so I don't have a great light situation. I did a couple of these during the day, and it was fabulous because the light was so good, but we do our best. All right, so I've got 50, I think it's 50-inch wide fabric. It's rayon from Art Gallery, April Rhodes collection. I think this one is called Arizona After. Anyway, it's great, kind of silky, light fabric that I think is going to be very pretty as a little robe jacket that I would probably wear with jeans and like a tank top or something. All right, so I've got the front piece. This is piece number 1, and it's a cut 2. So my fold of my fabric is over here on this side. This piece does not need to be cut on the fold. I'm just gonna stick a couple pins in so it doesn't move around too much. Oops. And I don't know if you've noticed, there's all kinds of like weird markings on this pattern, but you know what? It works. I'm not gonna do crazy things to conserve fabric, but I am cutting this piece far from the fold so that when I open this piece up that's on the fold, I'll have a nice big piece, and I hopefully can use like my tie or cut my tie from it or something. So I'm doing the largest size. I just based that on my measurements. And you can, if you're not familiar, you can just go into the pattern instructions, and there's always a chart. Take your measurements, high bust, bust, waist, and then that will tell you which size. This is like A through E situation, so kind of small, medium, or maybe extra small, small, medium, large, extra large. It's not a super fitted project, so you don't have to go too crazy with sizing, but I'm just going to go with the biggest. And again, this is very like low pressure here, people. It's not cutting perfectly. That is okay. It's a, non-fitted robe. So I'm going to just get in here and cut this side. And like I said, because it is not on the fold, I've cut 2 layers of fabric, so when I unpin, you're going to have 2 pieces, okay? Fair warning, my 15-year-old dog is right behind me, snoring very loudly. So if you hear that, that's what that noise is. There might be other noises coming from him. It's not me, it's him, just so you know. All right, so there's my front. Now, on my back, which is piece 2, I'm gonna get more fabric out. This one is going to be on the fold, so I'm literally rolling this off from the bolt. So, you know what? Yes, you're supposed to wash your fabric before you cut it out, but sometimes you don't have that chance. Don't worry about it. Just rather than like not sewing, just go for it. It's going to be okay, especially since this is not a really fitted project. If you wash it and dry it and it shrinks a little bit, so be it. It's not the end of the world, okay? Or just don't wash it and dry it. Whatever you're comfortable with. It tends to not be moving right now, so if you feel like your pattern is going on and your fabric or your pattern piece isn't moving around a lot on your fabric, you can skip your pins. That's what I've done. And again, this one is on the fold. Just move it over here so you can see. I've got the fold of my fabric here. And there's a marking here that says place on fold. This is the edge that needs to be on the fold. Let me just move that back to the right spot. There we go. Can't really see that, I guess, but oh my god, I'm all over the place here. You know what the moral of this story is? Use pins. What the heck? Alright. Scratch that. I'm using pins. I'm going back on. Okay, fabric is moved. Oh, there we go. Okay, now to show you what I mean by cutting on the fold, you take the pattern off, and this is the back. It's one piece. There's a nice big neck, head hole area, and this will be the back of the robe. So now I've got my front, And I've got my back, and get a little, so I've got this fabric that was left over. That was the fold from my front piece. So I'm gonna open it up and see if anything that's smaller can fit on here, because we've got the jacket. I believe this is the tie. No, that is not the tie. That is the collar. This is the belt, and we need 2 of them. So here's a little cutting trick. I need 2 of these. It's not going to happen because it's not quite long enough, right? So what I am going to do is cut some, because I hate to waste fabric. I'm going to cut and sew them together so you can't tell that I'm piecing them together. So I'm just gonna cut this along the straight edge here to even it up. And then I'll cut the width. It'll be a little short. And we need 2 total. So I'm going to cut another one. Here. So there's one. Here's the second one. And you can see I'm only short about this much. So probably like this chunk right here. So if I cut 2 of those, I bet I can get them out of this last leftover piece, and then I'll sew them to here and here so they're long enough. So this is the Robe jacket belt. I have a feeling they're gonna all get sewn together anyway, because you don't need 2 belts, right? So, oops. Put that there. I need about length right here, width here, and then since the other piece that I need is the same size, I'm just going to use that as my pattern for my second one. And then I'm going to show you, I'm just going to sew them together to get my 2 belt pieces the right length. Okay. There we go. So when you're looking at the 2 pieces that need to be sewn together, we're going to put the short and the long together, and right sides are touching. So I'm going to sew this end to get the length that I need here, and press that. Like I said, though, I don't have my iron page in right now. I can grab it if I need to. There and there. And then I do have a sewing machine camera set up. There we go. And I've got some matching thread on. I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm just going to sew along that edge. And I'm back stitching at the beginning, and I'm back stitching at the end to lock my seam. Alright, I'm at the end there. So I'm going to grab my other one. See, What happened? Sorry. All right. So what happens when you use your phone as your sewing machine cam and someone texts you? I didn't want to turn that off in case something goes horribly wrong and then someone watching is like, oh, I need to let Megan know. So I left texting on, but then I get distracted by other texts. Sorry. Okay. Now I've got the belt piece the right size, and so is the other one. So here they are. So just to show you what we've cut so far. We've got piece 1, we've got piece 2. That was piece 5. And now I just need piece 3 and piece 4. So I'm gonna put that with my cut pile. Piece 3 and piece 4. A little bit more fabric out here. Piece. So you have to cut one pair on this, which I think is a misnomer because it has to be cut on the fold. Oh, no, just kidding. We're going to sew it. You could cut it on the fold, but you need 2, and there'll be a seam at the center back, so you definitely do need 2. Now, here's a trick for cutting long, skinny pieces. I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to put it on the fold. And yes, we'll have a little left over there, but I'm okay with it. I'm going to use my pinking shears as a pattern weight, and I'm going to use this candle as a pattern weight because it's what's handy. So we need 2 of these. It's on the fold. Right here, it's on the fold. So I'm going to get the length that I need. I'll cut one. And then I'm going to cut my second one. So I'm just going to move it right here. Move my pattern weights. Move my candle. Cut my second one. So this is the collar. And we're going to eventually sew that. And when I say the collar, it's the pieces that we'll use here. That kind of go around the neck edge and then down the front. The belt we already cut, and the only thing we have left are these little sleeve pieces. Okay, got this. Cool. Now, what I'm gonna do, because I don't want to get mixed up with my, actually I'll just put them together. Yeah. So I don't get mixed up with the other long skinny, I'm just going to pin that piece to it so I know what it is. And then just get a little more fabric here. And we need 2 of these. And the grain line is going up and down. Doesn't need to be on the fold, so I'll do it right here. Get my pattern weights. Back. It's on here. piece 3, and that's the robe jacket sleeves. So I can remove the rest of my fabric, and I'm going to grab the instructions because I have an awful habit of not reading the instructions and just sewing whatever, but I won't do that tonight, I promise. Okay. So the first tip, iron all the seams once you sew them to get a crisp finish. This is great advice and I do recommend it. I am not going to do it tonight just for the sake of camera ease, but I do suggest that if you're feeling ready for that. If you're a complete beginner and you're like, look, I'm cutting, I'm sewing, that's about all I'm able to do, that's okay. I, for years, sewed and didn't iron my seams. And you know what? I wore the clothes that I made and it's okay. Okay, so step 1 is to get that back piece. So the back piece is the one that we cut on the fold. And we're going to make sure we have the pattern piece as well because we need to sew an inverted pleat or a box pleat. I would call it a box pleat, but I think this company is from Australia, so maybe they have a different name for it. So grab your back piece and your back pattern, and you're going to make a little line. So this little tick line corresponds with size E, my size. So that corresponds here, this one's this line. So depending on what size you are, find your line, okay? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sizes and 5 tick lines. Make the tick line on the piece that you cut for the back. And you're gonna wind up doing it twice because it was on the fold. So you could fold it back up. Fold it in the middle. What am I doing? I'm folding it the wrong way. There's my center. Okay. Here. Then my pattern piece goes on. My tick line is right here. So I'm going to stick a pin there. You could make a little cut, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to stick a pin here to mark where that line is. And then I'm going to remove my pattern piece, get my instructions out of the way, and I'm going to make sure that up here I have a pin here and one in the back in the same spot. So I kind of separate the pieces, pin the back. And what you're going to do is bring the middle out too. So one side you bring the middle out. Actually, that's all right. You're going to, I lied. You're actually going to keep it together. And you're going to sew down to the end point. So you only need the one pin to mark, and then you want to mark the end point. So grab that piece again, and there's an end point. You can see that the end point is exactly 3 gosh, 3 1/8. I'm going to say 3 inches down from the top. So if you grab the ruler, I'm going to make a mark at 3 inches. Now we're going to sew from here down to this end point here. Okay. Starting at the pin, sew. And then I'm going to back stitch at the end. I guess I just kind of did that out of habit. But then I'm going to turn. Am I going to turn the corner? No, I'm not. I'm just going to back stitch. I think that'll be better. Pull it off. And then I'll show you what we do with it. So now this is going to kind of bring the center in. And we're going to split it. So you take the extra here and kind of split it equally. And pin half to the left and half to the right. And it's saying that you can leave it, but I advise you to just sew right at the top, and then you can take your pins away and everything's the way it should be. So what this does is it makes this kind of cool, let me turn it right side up, little like pleated thing, and makes it a little bit bigger at the bottom. But we're going to sew right up here, so where the pins are, we're not going to need any more pins, okay? All right, so let me sew that. So when you do that, you're just going to put the top edge on, and I'm just going to sew with like a very small seam allowance, just so that stays. You don't even really have to back stitch. And I'm going to be really good and snip my threads as I go. All right, so now that little pleat is secured at the top. Great. And so now I want you to put this overhead camera on. And this is the top of the robe. Now take your front pieces. There should be 2 separate pieces. And one is going to go on one side. That is the bottom, I hope. What is that? No, it's not. Seems much bigger than. Well, we shall see. So this is the shoulder seam. So we're joining the front and back. Join the 2 front pieces onto the back piece by stitching along both shoulder seams. Make sure both right sides of fabric are facing each other, right? So here I have yeah, gosh, what did I do here? Let's investigate. Seems I cut something wrong in there. I don't know. But you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring that over. line it up the best we can. If it's hanging over a little bit, not to worry. I just want to look at if my pattern pieces are off. So there's the back, and there's the front. Yeah, front is way bigger. So alright, this is a great example of how we can make it work. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold a little bit. I'm going to match up on this side here, and then I'll worry about this overhang on this side later. Good times. Good times with the free patterns. Good times. All right, I'm pinning this top. I'm just going to sew it as is. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. This is a great example of let's not give up. Let's make this work. And it's always possible. When I learned to sew, there was no YouTube. You just did it, and you know, if you ran into problems, you figured it out. So that is very much my mindset. If you've had me as a teacher in real life, I think you'll know most of the time it'll work out just fine. All right, so we've got our shoulder seams. I know it's hard to tell what's going on because it's just like a big floppy blob. Well, all I think I'm gonna do is like cut off a little bit here, or maybe I'll even just like fold it like I have here, and then it's all gonna be just fine. Okay, so sew along the shoulder, sew along the shoulder, and we will keep going. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'm just gonna keep sewing and hope that you're sewing with me. Don't run your pins over. It's not good for your sewing machine. Other side. I'm just using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is basically the edge of my presser foot with the edge of my fabric. Don't run over your pins. Did I just say that? Yeah, I just did that, didn't I? Okay, so let's go back to the aerial view and take a look. So there's our head area. The next thing I'm going to do is make the back kind of flip up. Actually, I'm going to flip it over so the right side is up. There's my back. And see if I can get this a little bit higher up. Here's the shoulder seam. Here is where that sleeve is going to go. So we've got this like kind of rounded area to straight. And then, oh my gosh, I don't know if you guys heard that. That was my dog. I swear it wasn't me. Rounded area. The sleeve goes in this straight area. Now, right here, it's a little bit uneven. Watch what I'm gonna do. Oh yeah, all nice and even. All right, where are my sleeves? Here they are. Okay, so you've got two rectangles, which are your sleeves. You want them to go this long way, and with any luck, this straight area here will match up with the piece here. There's something on my fabric. This looks pretty good. Not quite perfect, but again, not a big deal. Take the sleeve piece, flip it over, and put right sides together. If you have some overhang, my suggestion is to center the sleeve piece and give yourself a little overhang on this side and a little overhang on that side, okay? And even here where it's not perfectly even, that's fine. But you want to be able to, when you sew, know that you're going to be hitting both layers. So I've got it in a good spot. And I'm going to pin it. Okay, so I'm going to sew along that edge. Get it over there. Starting at the very edge. And I've got that overhang, so I'm going to not worry about sewing that and just start where the fabric underneath is. And make sure you backstitch. Okay, guess what the next step is? You guessed it. Put the other sleeve on. So find your other, kind of sort out your pieces. Sometimes this can be the hardest part about sewing, is figuring out what's what. Can you all see that? So there's this rounded part, then the straight part starts. And then you go until you get to this rounded part. So I'm actually going to shift everything 90 degrees just to show you this edge. I'm going to cut my thread with some pinky shears. I'm going to do what I did last time and even this out a little bit. Boom. And now this edge gets the sleeve on it, right sides facing. Here, here, here. Okay. All right, pinned overhang is centered for the most part. We're gonna sew along this edge, and then our sleeves will be on. This is like such a super easy way to sew sleeves. Nice and flat. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Okay, so the next step, so we have just sewed our sleeves on here and here. Let me know if you think this looks familiar to what we just did. This is basically a really great diagram showing right sides together. Now we're going to flip those sleeves back over so the right sides are up, and you're going to top stitch on the side of the front and back, not on the side of the sleeve. I want you to top stitch on the side of the front and back. This is a great time to press the seam here. Use an iron. And you know what? I'm going to go grab mine because I'm going to do mine as well, because I think that will be very satisfying. And we're going to top stitch. So let me go grab my iron. My mini iron unfortunately bit the dust. I think they're made pretty crappy, and so I'm just gonna have to use my big iron. Okay, here we go. Let's not keep that down on there. So now that you've sewed these sleeves on, so it pins in here because they weren't right in the way. Okay, so you unfold the sleeve, and the seam that you just sewed is what you're pressing. So it's this. And what they want you to do is, now you have what's called the seam allowance, right? So the seam allowance is going to be up towards the actual robe. So that's what they want you to press. And then you're going to top stitch. While I'm here, I'm going to hem the sleeve. So fold the edge and press it. And then you want to do that a second time. So I'm going to top stitch, and then I'm also going to hem this edge. Kind of do it in two 2 steps at once. I just figured while I'm ironing, I might as well hem the edge of the sleeve. So now turn it around, find the other shoulder seam. And same thing. Make sure the seam allowance is folded that way, or the excess seam allowance is on this side. Press. And then that looks nice and flat, and I'm going to sew on this side, not this side. But before I do that, I'll just hem. I'm gonna even this crazy cutting out. Oh, hey, Monty. This fabric is really thin, so it irons really easily. Fold it a second time, press. Okay, so we have 4 things that we're going to go ahead and sew. And clear some space here. The first thing I'm going to sew is my top stitching on the shoulder seam. This is going to be really pretty. I'm kind of excited about this. Okay. So I'm over on, this is the sleeve, this is the front and back. I'm over on the side of the front and back. Pincushion out of the way. And when you're top stitching something like this, just kind of make sure that you don't have anything in the way of what you're sewing. Like you don't have this kind of like caught up underneath or something. Spread it out. And while I'm over here, gosh, that just really did a number on the fabric. I don't think my needle is delicate enough. Oh well. The side I'm going to hem. Ooh. Adam just got home from fire practice and is trying on fire stuff. Come show us. What did you get?
That's for you.
I got one.
Got you a hoodie.
I got a hoodie. Stanford Volunteer Fire Department. It's a little delayed, so just do your thing.
Hey, hey. People of the internet, Stanford Fire Department's bringing a generator to Casey, Kentucky.
Woo! Amazing. And what are these?
A long sleeve t-shirt and
I
a
like
pullover
this.
zip.
Pullover zip. Oh, that's cute. All right, enough of that.
Nothing.
Let's get back to sewing. Thanks for that. Letting me have that little interlude. I'm hemming the sleeve. I'm noticing that the fabric is pulling a little. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of pulling from the back, keeping it taut as I go, and I'm seeing that that's preventing the pulling from happening. The other thing that could prevent the pulling from happening is to not have as thick, as large a sewing needle, but I'm not going to change my sewing needle right now, so it is what it is. But by pulling it taut, it's helping. I'm not really seam ripping because you don't need to. It's going to get sewn when we flip it. Okay, same thing. Both steps are going to happen on the other side. So I am making a conscious effort to not go as fast as I normally do at these. So I hope it's helping anybody that's on here live. But you can always just hit pause if you need to catch up with a step. Alright, so I want to position this so I can pull it taut while I sew. To prevent the pulling. Okay. Top stitched. Now we sleeve is hemmed. Look, I'm gonna check my instructions. So this is the step we've already done. Step 4, making the belt loops. They seem really big. What the heck pieces are belt loop? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, piece 6. You know what? I don't even know. I think I crumpled up my piece 6. But you know what? I know how to make belt loops. So I'm going to show you how to make some belt loops without the pattern. Some scraps. Let's find, there's a good piece. Now, when I make belt loops, I don't actually make 2. I make 1 and then I sew it and then I cut it in half. So, I don't know, I'm going to make it kind of long and then I can make it smaller if I need to. So, here's my rectangle. It is 11 inches by about 4. About 11 by 4. I'm just, since my fabric is pretty thin, I'm just going to fold and kind of overlap. I'll make it a little, and then I'm going to fold in this selvage. You don't want to see that. And the end result should be, I don't want to see this white, so I'm going to do this. And fold again. So now I've got this sort of tripled, quadrupled belt loop situation. and I can iron it. There we go. And there's the belt loop. All that white is going to be from the selvage is going to be sandwiched in between. Hopefully you won't see it. I'm not even pinning it. And I'm going to once again just try to hold it really taut so it doesn't run. And if it's hard to start right at the beginning, here's a trick sometimes. I'll start, and then if it gets stuck, I'll pull the thread and start in a little bit. Wow, I'm really surprised at how much this is running. But we've got a belt loop, 2 of them in fact, because I'm going to cut it in half, and now I've got 2 belt loops, extra long. So before, let me get this ironing board out of the way, but and show you what I'm doing. Oops. We're going to place the belt loops, and I'm guessing there's a spot. Stitch into place, make sure you back stitch so they're secure. So usually when you have a belt loop situation, you would line up the pattern piece and find where the belt loop marker is for your size and stick a pin. Okay. You know what? I'm supposed to be doing it on the back, and I just did it on the front. So, in case back. And you know what? You can skip this for now if you want to, and you could always just top stitch it on wherever you want it, because I suspect I'm going to put this on and I'm not going to like where it is. So there's that option. But you know what? I'm going to do it because I'm following the instructions. So this is A, B, C, D, E, belt loop marker. There we go. I want to do it on, I'm going to take that one out, and I want to do it in the same exact spot on the other side, so I can just line up these, fold it in half, line up the pieces, and mark it here with my pin. Now I got to find my belt loops again. Ah, there they are. So you take, go a little bit closer here. Take the belt loop, fold it in half. You know what? I'm going to make this on the inside because there is a little white showing, but I'll just make it on the inside. And then find where your pin is, and you're going to have the raw edge. You folded it, and you want the raw edge to kind of poke over the edge of where you marked with the pin. So same thing over here. Fold the belt loop in half, make the raw edge, go just the pass, and then that way the loop is what's sticking out. So I'm going to take that pin that I used to mark it, and I'm going to pin it. And then I'm going to baste by sewing right here and sewing right there. And when I say baste, I just mean sew it so it stays in place, even though it's going to be sewn again when you sew the side of your robe. And I just back stitch. I'm going to go across so it's nice and secure. Trim my thread tails. And okay. So now we are going to sew them on. Now we get to, you guessed it, sew the side seam. So we're going to put right sides facing each other. We're gonna kind of fold this sleeve in half, make the front piece line up with the back piece on the side, pin this whole side, pin this whole side, and then we're going to sew it. Let's do it. Let me back this camera up. All right. So you can see what's happening here. You're gonna bring, so I've hemmed the edge of the sleeve, so that makes a nice little marker for what we're doing. That's the sleeve, that's the hemmed edge, and we're gonna match up this whole side seam. I'm gonna turn it on its side. And I always start by pinning the seam together. So I'm going to pin the seam together and pin all the way out to the end of the sleeve. I just want to make sure that my hems line up. If there's any extra fabric, you can kind of just pull that to get rid of it. So I'll pin and I'll pin. Now I'll continue pinning down the side, and you see the raw edges of the belt loop sticking out, right? And go to the bottom, and then do they line up? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. All right. So there's that side. I am going to, it's starting to look more like a robe, don't you think? And same thing over here. Kind of orient yourself to finding the sleeve. And you can find the hemmed edge of the sleeve and put that together. Find your armpit seam, put that together. Stick a pin in it. Your hem together, stick a pin in that, maybe a couple here, and then Bobby Legs, I think that's Rob. Hey Rob. How's it going? Thanks for watching my live stream. Rob has a YouTube channel about watches, I believe. Watches are kind of similar to sewing machines, I guess. Old ones, at least. Mechanical. All right. Rob, did you get to see Adam? I just had a little interlude where Adam showed me all his fire department loot stuff. Very exciting. Okay, I am gonna sew now. Ah, there we go. So, starting at the hemmed sleeve on the right side, I'm going to use a 1/2-inch seam allowance. Try not to sew my pins. As I just literally sew over my pins. Yeah. Blocking the camera. Move that a little closer. All right, one side done. I'm going to start from the hemmed edge again and go sew along the other side seam. You can't see your pinheads, just go slow. Side seams sewn. Next step in this lovely tutorial is to hem the sleeves, but you already did that when it was flat, and that is such a good thing to do. It saves you a lot of time. All right, moving on. We need to grab our collar pieces, and I did keep my collar pieces separate. And is this my collar? I know the other one is labeled, so I'm just make sure. Yeah, so this is my collar. There's two of them. You have to sew them together. So I'm going to take 1 and 2, sew them together. So it's one long piece. join them so they're one right along this edge. Sew it together. And all right, I was just looking ahead at the instructions. All right. So now that you've got them together, the next thing you're going to do is fold it in half, long and skinny with wrong sides touching. And you want to press this edge okay, ironing board is back. Robe is on the table. So, if you've stuck with me this long, I appreciate it. Folding in half, wrong sides together. The other thing I'm going to do, and I'm trying to see if they have us do it, but one side of the raw edge is going to get sewn right to the robe, but the other side we need to... So now that it's folded in half, this side will get sewn, but this side is going to get folded over. So to make it easier once we sew it on, I'm going to hem this edge, or at least just fold it over because it's going to get hemmed. So I'm going to just do some weird angled ironing for you. There we go. And try not to burn myself. That would be bad. Oh, maybe I just need to stand up. There we go. So when you're kind of ironing to do a hem, I just kind of like fold it as I go. Try not to hold it on there too long in one spot. I think my New Year's resolution is going to be to get these live streams out into my studio, because this is just not an optimal sewing area, an ironing area. So yeah, I have a lot of things that I'm going to change. And that is hopefully one of them. Hopefully the internet will work well enough out there so I can do that. All right. So you want to fold this hem, but you also don't want to get rid of the crease, which I feel like I might have been doing, but it's there enough. Okay, so now we've folded over the edge on one side. This side, don't fold it over because that's the side you're going to attach to your robe. So let's get the robe back here. I'll get rid of my ironing board again. Oops. Let's see over. Okay. There we go. So we need to revisit what happened on our oversized front pieces. So what I think I'm gonna do, let's see if I can figure out here. I don't want to cut too much off, but as you can see, this is way bigger. Now, what I think I'm gonna do is you can grab a ruler, or I have this cutting mat, and you want to kind of like start here and cut so you have a straight line to cut off. So you want this to be even, so you can kind of put a ruler on if that's, and even this out. So you're just cutting that much off. And then now you've got the back, the front, and they're even. You're gonna have to do that on the other side. So move on over to here. And you've got exactly the same thing going on here. So what you can do, this is kind of a fun trick. Take the piece that you just cut and lay it so it's exactly the same. Lay it on here as your guide. That one did not go as straight, but I think it's going to be okay. All right, so get rid of this mat. Hold this in front, and let's take a look at this robe we've got going on. Sleeve here, sleeve here, collars getting attached here onto the back and the front. So I've got my collar piece, I've got the raw edge. That is my belt piece. There's no raw edge there. Here we go. So it's folded in half. This side's hemmed. This is the raw edge. I'm going to take the middle and find the middle of the shirt and pin. I've got a bunch of pins here. Pin seam to start, and then you're going to work your way around and hope that they wind up sort of the same length, right? So start pinning. Your fabric will determine how many pins you think you're going to need. If it's not moving around on you, you probably don't need as many. I love that there's still people on. If you have things that y'all want to make in 2022, you've got to let me know. I'm doing my schedule now for these online classes, so let me know. Here's a bit of sadness. I mean, sewing sadness, not real life sadness. This is shorter, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cut the bottom of this to even it out. I'm not going to do it right now, but that's probably what I'm going to do. Now I've got to pin the other side. See how the other side goes. I imagine it'll be exactly the same, but one never knows. So I'm pinning the raw edge of the collar piece along the neck and front of the robe. And the other side is going to fold around and we'll top stitch. It's actually going to be, I think, really nice. I really hope it turns out and I can wear it. I have to work at the library tomorrow, so I'm hoping I can wear this with, like I said, a little tank, maybe a black tank top underneath and a pair of jeans, you know. Yep, short over here too. So I will show you my trick for evening that out after I sew it. Not to worry. All right, let's sew. Let's sew. Start at this point where it's a little uneven. 1/2 inch seam allowance. I always feel like I get a little hoarse when I do these because I'm literally just talking for like 2 hours. What am I at? 1 hour and 21? Yeah. I don't normally talk this much in real life. So the cool thing about this collar part is there's not going to be raw edges on it because this is going to like fold around and encase the raw edges. However, the shoulder and side seams will have raw edges. So I did grab, before the class, I ran and I grabbed my pinking shears. So you can, since we're not serging this, you can obviously, if you have a serger, you can serge it, but pink your raw edges of your robe too, and then that'll clean that up. Unless you're making it with something that doesn't really run, then you could even it up with like a regular pair of scissors. But if it's fraying, it's nice to use the pinking shears because it cuts it jagged and then it runs, frays less. Okay, trim my threads with my pinking shears because they're handy, and then I'm gonna go back to the overhead camera. Okay, starting up at the seam back here, here's what we're doing. You're gonna make, so this is the back of the head. You're gonna make this raw edge fold up so that you can take this folded edge of the hem and fold that down so it literally will cover up this raw edge. So then you can get rid of all this, and that will be safely tucked inside. So as you tuck it inside, pin it. And actually, I want you to sew this on the right side. So I actually think I want you to pin it out here. And then when you're pinning it, you're making sure that you're hitting it right where you need to on the inside. So fold the seam allowance up so it gets tucked under there. Pin the edge of this collar piece and keep going. So yeah, fold up, encase, and pin. And then when we go to sew this, you're going to be sewing right where your pins are. So you're going to follow the line of the pins, and then that way it'll hit it on this side, right in the spot you need it to. And then look at how nice that's starting to look on the inside. So these are the seams I'm talking about that you can use the pinking shears with, like kind of this situation when you have these raw edges that you don't. Here's another one. You can do the pinking shears on that. But starting from the middle, I'm going to do the same thing and work my way down the other side. And on the outside. And on the outside. Take it up. Sometimes I skip around a little bit just to make sure that I'm not like going crooked. Alright. And maybe two more right in here. Oh yeah. Okay, so now you have all the pins on the outside of the robe, and you're just going to do one long top stitch. Wow, there are a lot of like bot comments tonight. People that aren't real. I'll have to look into what is going on with that, because that just seems weird. But anyway, all right, sewing, top stitching right along this edge. Oh. let's take a look here. Should I try it on with my track jacket on? This is such a horrible angle right now. It's looking a little pajama-like, have to say. All right. But here are my belt loops, 1, and belt loop 2. Seems a little high, whatever, I'm gonna ignore that. So, I think we're in the home stretch here. Oops, that's not what we want. Let's take a look at this front where it's just not looking very even. I want my shoulder. Yeah, let me back this up. Alright, so here's what I'm gonna do. There's my side. There's my front. I'm just gonna do kind of one of these. And you can do the same thing and use that to cut the other side, but I think I'm just gonna even that out. All right. So now I can hem the bottom pretty easily. Just gonna iron it, do a double fold, hem it. But we do have some pieces left here. That's a robe tie. That's a robe tie. These are scraps. So, we should have 2 robe ties. I think we're gonna sew them together. Something tells me. Yep. And I think I'm going to do a little different than the instructions say, but you've got 1 piece, you've got 2 pieces, put them together, right sides facing, sew the short side together. I'm going to stick 2 pins in before I sew it. Then we're going to put right sides together and we're going to pin the whole thing. So I've got this really long belt. This is the center of the really long belt. I'm going to leave from here to here unsewn. So I'm just going to mark my pins and I'm going to do it by signifying 2 pins here and 2 pins here. And that's where I'm not going to sew. And then the rest I will sew, including sewing the end shut. So keep folding. sew it and then I'm gonna press it. Got scraps of fabric on the floor that I'm rolling over. So I sewed the end and now I'm sewing this long skinny, and I'm gonna stop when I get to the double pins where I marked it with double pins. Double pins. Pick it up, skip over to the next set of double pins right here, and now I'm going to sew the rest of it closed. And I promise it'll be easier you think to sew it closed. Sorry, it'll be easier than you think to turn it right side out. Tired. There we go. Okay. So if you have any pins left, take them out. Take those double pins out. And we're going to turn it right side out. So find one of the closed edges and pull it apart and start to push it so it's inside out. Just use your finger. It's wide enough. Just kind of use your finger. And then find something that you can poke it, either a pencil or a knitting needle, something that's not real sharp. And you're going to use that to push the end to the opening in the middle. So I'm just sliding it over itself. Now I can get to the... And then I'm going to use that pencil to make the nice rectangular ending. And then I've turned half of it right side out. So go find the other side and do the same thing. Turn it right side out by pushing the end with your finger just to start it, and then grab your little device. Use a chopstick, or you can use scissors if you have them closed and you're really careful. Get to the middle, and then right at the middle is when I just make sure that the kind of squared off edge of the robe tie is good to go. And now everything, oh, my thread is in the way, just cut that thread. Everything is turned right side out, and the raw edges of this opening are going to go together. So I'm just going to stick a pin there real quick. And then I'm going to grab my mini ironing board and iron the whole thing. Let me just stick one more pin. So I'm going to iron that, put it in the belt loops. Then I'm going to hem the bottom. Here we go. We're almost there. I'm going to do it in 2 hours. We're at 1 hour and 43. Okay, let's hem the belt first. So, it's kind of weirdly turned. Let's see. Starting at the end. Just go nice and slow. Don't iron the pin heads. You can iron where the pins are, but just don't iron the plastic. There we go. So in that middle spot where it's not sewn together, you're going to top stitch. Let's do that. Snip your other thread. All right, there's your robe belt. I'll put that on in a second. And last but not least, we need to hem the bottom of this robe. So, fold, press. I'm going to fold it up once and press all the way across, and then I'm going to do the whole thing a second time. All right, we've got one fold. We want to do it a second time so we don't leave the edges raw. Iron, iron, iron. And there we go. Now I can hem the bottom edge in the sewing machine. I'll put the belt through the belt loops. And that is it. You can go back and pinking shear on the inside seams if you want, but that's about a wrap, just about. Okay, jumping the gun. Let me sew this. Oof. If you are having trouble starting, like I'm about to, you can always sew a little and pull the thread to get it going. That's a good trick. Just use this thread that started, use it to pull, but don't forget to backstitch. It. I don't have any pins. Table so you can see what's happening. So drapey. Give it a good press when you're done. But oh my goodness, it's very kimono-esque. I really kind of like it in this fabric. I don't know that I'll wear it tomorrow even if it's freezing. I'll put a turtleneck underneath it or something. All right, backing it up. There's that kimono, and put that through this belt loop. Da-da-da. Get it around. Probably an easier way to do this. Through this belt loop. And look at that. Boy, you could use this and make it a little bit longer and do an actual like nighty robe. Or I mean, I guess this could be a nighty robe too if you want a really short one. Tie, and there it is. Okay, I will wear it tomorrow. And I will take a picture and show you, and I will add it to this video. And I hope you all had a good time. It is now 9:22 my time, which means it is officially my bedtime. I want to thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time. And like I said, I am working on the schedule for 2022. So if you, I don't even know where I should be looking. I'm sorry if I'm not looking at the camera because I'm honestly not even sure. Oh yeah, there we go. 2022 schedule is coming up. And if you have projects that you want to learn, clothing, accessories, whatever it is, let me know. Instagram, you can message me, you can message in the comments, you can send me an email, you can write me a letter. Just let me know what you want to do. Okay. I'm going to say goodnight now.